Hi guys, Saturday, not Friday, and I'm here with Selina and me at Davao SM LANANG. And in the frame, you can see the new St. Luke's Hospital, the waterfall, and the durian market, the stinky durian market. So, without further ado, we are under our skin on Saturday. So what have you been doing this week then, Selina?
Not much, actually. It's been slow.
Okay, there we go. Well, I went, we're going back in time for when I first went to work. So I went to work when I left work. I went out on works experience when I was at school. School had this policy that they would like you to try your work. So I went out to work at 15 in 1974. To a hotel called the King's Head Hotel in Horsham, and I went there to be a cook, to be a chef, and I remember going there to have a look at the hotel. I had some food there. The school took me there, and they showed me around, introduced me to a general manager called Mr. Atkinson, introduced me to this head chef called John Harvey, who was about 6'6". He was white American, but he was big, he was loud, he was gregarious, he was intimidating. So I wanted to go there and I wanted to work, but before I could go there, my mum and dad wanted to go down and see the hotel and meet the people. So a little ditto. A little bit of a story. We turned up for the interview, and I'm really embarrassed because I don't want to really be, I'm a man. I'm going into the world. I'm, spreading my wings, and my mum and dad want to come along with me to see if I'm making the right decision. Well, I've already made that decision. So we're sitting in the lounge area of this hotel, and my mum and dad are talking to me, and then John Harvey comes out. This big. American guy, white American. Oh God, it was like the Empire State Building walking in. He took up so much room, and he was accompanied by the general manager, Mr. Atkinson, and we sat there. Mr. Atkinson introduced himself, and then introduced John, and then the first thing, my father was like asking about the job, and I always remember it. John turned around and said, we're going back a long time to 1974, and it still sits in my memory. So it etched a lot of fear factor into my mind. He turned around and said, well, I don't know why your son wants to be a chef, because only drunks, druggies, and weirdos want to work in kitchens. He goes, so he looked at my dad and he goes, so which one of these is your son? My dad was like furious that he was insinuating that he'd actually brought up a son that was a weirdo, a druggie, or a drunk in the 1974. But I went to work there about a week later, and that was my journey. I didn't go back to school. I continued working at a hotel for 2 years, learnt a lot, opened my eyes. There were women there that, were chasing this young virginal nymph that was working in the kitchen called Garry, and I didn't know anything about all of this. This was all new to me. This was all like, oh, why has this young lady got her blouse undone and I can see all of her cleavage and all of her boobs? And it was like, oh.
Wouldn't they be the nymph, not you?
Yeah, well, I was like a rabbit in the headlights. I was scared, and I was like, I couldn't wait to get home at night. It's 10 o'clock, and these girls would do these mature women would go, oh, wouldn't you like to stay over? And
breed like a rabbit.
Yeah, that was it. And it was like, So I run like hell to get back home to my bed, and it took me about 6 months, 7 months to understand that they were joking. It was a form of humour. it wasn't humour I'd actually I'd met in the past or I'd actually seen when I was at school, but it was adult humour, so within 6 months I started watching Monty Python because I thought that was where this sexuality humour and this lurid humour came from. But that took me in a different route at the Monty Python. That was like really weird and wacky and off the wall.
I love the Twit Olympics.
Yeah, the Twit
Olympics.
Yeah. Ministry of Funny Walks. That was one.
The story of the dead parrot.
Yeah. The Norwegian Blue.
Norwegian.
Yeah. This parrot is dead. Or would you like a 5-minute argument or a 10-minute argument?
A Ministry of Silly Walks.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of my working career, and the King's Head opened up a lot for me. I made met a really nice guy there, a guy called Mick Fennell, but he had a motorcycle accident about 8-9 months later, run into the back of a lorry that was carrying scaffolding poles, and that was the last time I saw Mick Fennell, and that brought me into the world of grief and loss, and how to deal with it, really. But a great bunch of guys, and I'm still friends with John Harvey from 1974 until today. He lives on a narrowboat in Birmingham City, just outside London, with his wife Wendy. And I can't understand how John ever found a partner in life. I don't know what Wendy sees in John, but it must be something, because he's the scariest guy I've ever laid eyes on. But it's the King's Head, my youth.
I'm going to start with the end of my Dodge muscle car. I sold it to a guy that I was working with who offered me double what I paid for it originally, so I sold it. Since I was living in Tucson, Arizona, which is the desert, great weather all the time, hardly ever rains. And my younger brother, had bought a motorcycle. He bought a Norton 750 Commando.
Very nice bike.
Great bike. So he inspired me to buy a motorcycle. So I bought a Triumph 650 Trophy. With a 6-inch extended front. Kind of a semi-chopper.
So why did you buy the Triumph rather than the Norton?
Well, my brother found the Norton through a buddy. I didn't know about it until he actually bought it. And then the guy with the Triumph offered me a pretty good deal. I don't remember what I paid for it, but it was cheap.
Oh, okay. So you got a good deal on the blue muscle car that you ripped the hell out of.
Yes.
And then you invested that in a
motorcycle,
which you got a great deal on.
Yes, got it very cheap. I'm cruising around on a road bike, right, because it's meant for out on the road.
Right.
And I was working, I had a night job while I was going to college.
So on this night, were you looking something like Fonda and Dennis Hopper?
Yeah. Of course, the thing with motorcycles is it's a lot more fun to cruise around with friends, to be at least 2, 3, 4 of you.
Okay,
together.
yeah.
It's a lot more fun. Otherwise, if you're just doing it by yourself, it's not so much fun. You don't want to go out that much, other than to the store or the market, whatever.
Don't get a 6-pack.
So my brother had his Norton. We had another guy that had a Honda CB 750. Remember the Honda CBs?
Yes.
They were actually very good bikes, very reliable, popular.
It's what the Japanese market was all about then, wasn't it? Bringing in, 2-stroke 750s or 600s and
yeah, they were
built.
inline they were straight 4 cylinders.
Yeah.
You had 350, 500, 750, and then of course that all evolved into the 1000. Then you had the Goldwing. Later, the big road cruiser,
still going
all
today.
decked out. Very expensive, but really nice bikes.
Big armchair, got your 8-track in it, got your cassette player in it.
You got your radio in your helmet to talk to it.
Yeah.
They're beautiful bikes, very expensive. So anyways, for a while I was a motorcycle demon. A lot of fun cruising around the desert. But the muscle car wasn't out of my system. So I got rid of the bike. Actually, I started having mechanical problems with it. It's a British bike, you're not a Honda.
Yeah, that's it.
So I was having all these problems with it.
So you got rid of it after a month?
Now I had it for maybe a year.
Yeah?
Maybe a little under a year.
Oh,
got rid of it.
That's a long time for a British bike.
Yeah. And bought another muscle car. Pontiac Firebird Formula 400.
That sounds like a big car.
It wasn't as big as the Dodge, but it was smaller and lighter in weight, so it handled better, and it was quick, it was fast.
So did you give it as an initiation ceremony, ripping it out? And,
yeah, sure.
Light the wheels up for a quarter mile?
But by this time I was done with college. I had majored in radio television, and I got offered a job from an old college friend back in Lincoln, Nebraska. He was working for a radio station, and I thought, wow, this is ideal. It's in my major. I can work. First job out of college, I can work at what I majored in, radio, television. So I sold the muscle car, the Pontiac. And packed everything up and moved back to Lincoln, Nebraska. And took the job. Little did I know until I started the job that it didn't pay for crap. But I thought the work experience, just working for a radio station, was going to be great. Look good on a resume, right?
So you were the night jock DJ and...
Well, it was shift work. We kind of varied. I mean, what I ended up doing actually was just becoming an automated kind of tape changer. Everything was automated on reel-to-reel tape. Remember reel-to-reel? Yeah, they had
What's that?
the programming, the FM that I worked for was all automated. We used to call it elevator music.
Okay.
That you get in an elevator and you hear in the background. It's all this soothing, gentle elevator music or copies of rock songs that were done very softly and
All right.
acceptable, right?
So you weren't like Robbie Williams in Good Morning Vietnam.
No.
Give you a microphone, give you your
I
playlist.
I wasn't on air.
Okay.
I just sat there and changed out tapes. We had commercials were timed, and we had them on 8-tracks, 8-track cartridges.
Oh, right, yeah.
So you had to watch the clock, and you'd shove in a certain... And the commercials were all labeled, how many times they'd be played, how long they would run, etc., etc. But this is boring as hell. I mean, just sitting there doing this and getting paid crap for it. I thought, there's got to be something better. I mean, just to occupy my mind, I would set up a tape that would run for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then I'd go down the hall to the AM office, the AM studio. Now those guys were DJs.
Okay, so they were actually playing.
Yes, they were playing top 40, top 100 hits.
Right.
And then, every song, then they would break after the song's over, they come on air,
Have a little bit of a chit chat,
Yes.
make a few comments, and play another.
You're rocking out at KFOR AM. So I would hang out in the studio when they were playing a song, and then me and the DJ would tell stories and talk. It was the only thing to pass the time.
Sounds boring.
Well, come to find out, the radio business is boring. That's what you do. I mean, even the DJ, sure, it might be exciting to be a DJ, but you had to have the voice to be a DJ.
Right.
And they didn't get paid hardly anything at all as well, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I guess if you turned into Don Imus, the famous Los Angeles DJ.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah, he was very, very famous. Started out as AM DJ.
Yeah.
Became very, very popular. Don Imus. He died not too long ago. He had a great voice for radio. Then you could make good money. But I got tired. I ended up having to take a second job. I was working retail sales out at the mall, Gateway Mall it was called.
All right. Okay.
I worked in a expensive department store called Miller and Payne. I quickly found out it didn't pay for crap either, except they offered commission, right? So if you could get the sales, you could make a little more money on the commission basis. But the big advantage to that wasn't necessarily the job, it was all the girls that worked in the...
Oh, right. So there is a perk there.
Yes.
The perk isn't the salary or the commission, it's the young women.
Yes, it's all the girls working in all the different departments.
Oh.
And I'd roam around the store talking to all the girls, because it was a big store.
All right. So you got paid crap, you didn't do any commission because you had no sales, and you were just chatting up the ladies.
Yes, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's...
More fun than the radio station.
That sounds like a good job to me. I mean, I was working 15 hours a day, going home absolutely knackered on my knees at 16, 17 years of age.
Yeah, but I was working a lot of hours. I mean, I wasn't physically doing anything, sitting in a chair at a radio station changing tapes.
Yeah.
And then if I wasn't doing that, then I'm wandering around a department store
Talking to the ladies.
talking to girls and supposedly making sales, but I didn't make any sales.
And telling the girls that you're a DJ at KF? KR?
KFOR.
KFOR.
Yes.
Salines rocking the radio in Gateway Mall. Oh. Well, I won't ask how many young ladies you took out.
I actually ended up getting a girlfriend out of that.
Oh.
She worked in the department next to mine. I was working in furniture and floor coverings.
Okay.
She was working in bedding and linens, I believe, next to my department. And we ended up, she was a kind of a nutty gal, liked to party. She was always after me to quit hitting on the other girls. So we ended up dating, and she became a girlfriend for a while. So didn't turn out too bad.
No,
but I got tired. I mean, I was working, sometimes I would work all day long in the radio station, then I'd work the night at the department store, and then get up the next morning and work all day. I was like you, I was working 15, 16 hours a day just to survive.
And we got nothing.
Got paid nothing.
Yeah, I remember my first wage packet was £5.25, which is about $9.50.
Ooh, that's bad.
Yeah, $9.50 for like 60 hours in a week.
I think I was making minimum wage, which at that time, gosh, I don't even remember, around $1.50 an hour.
Yeah.
So maybe I was making, between the two jobs, working 8 hours, 12, maybe $24, $25 a day.
We didn't have minimum wage in the UK then. It didn't come in until the end of the 70s. But at that time, I remember, I mentioned about the unions. I remember going to work one day, and the kitchen, it was coal-fired stoves. We could cook, but the restaurant was very, very romantic, because it was all lit by candles, because there was no electricity being produced, because the coal miners had gone on strike, because they said they wanted more money. So to get more money, they leveraged their power to bring the country to its knees, and that resulted in poor productivity across the board, because nobody could produce anything because there was no power. So you ended up with like Triumph Trophy 650s that lasted 6 to 12 months and then started going wrong. Like Norton Commando, they got sold in the 70s because they,
my brother's bike was much better than mine.
Yeah, well, it was a good company to manufacture, but
there was a big scandal with Norton not too long ago, wasn't there? Some British multi-billionaire bought the company, was going to resurrect the name.
Yeah, he bought it for £1.
He bought the name.
Yeah.
And he was going to resurrect the famous Norton motorcycle.
That was it.
And I guess they actually did start building Nortons, but they were junk.
Yeah.
And
do you know why they were junk? Because they were using Japanese engines in a British. Everybody thought it was going to be a Norton self-built engine, Norton manufactured body and frame and brakes and everything. But it wasn't. They did the frame and they did the normal structure of the bike, but the engines they were putting in there, I believe, came from Kawasaki.
Oh.
And that meant that the investors started pulling out very, very quickly.
Well, I guess the scandal was the investors wanted to sue in British court.
Yeah.
For fraud and misrepresentation.
Because when you turn around, it's like Tesla, isn't it? If you turn around and advertise you're going to get a Tesla car and you're going to get all that, and then all of a sudden when you lift it up, you've got a Toyota Prius engine in it, then the people that have bought into that brand got really, really miffed in the UK. But it didn't happen just once. I think it happened 2 or 3 times with Norton Commando. So,
which is too bad because
they were a great bike.
They were. I rode my brother's bike quite a few times, and it was fast. I mean, you could run through the gears it wasn't like a Japanese bike. Japanese bike, you had to watch the tachometer.
Yeah.
And you wound them up till you hit the red line and shifted. A Norton, you didn't do that. A Norton had this smooth, steady power band that you quickly would run through the gears without ever getting close to red line.
Yeah.
And you'd be up hitting 100 miles an hour out on the freeway real quick, real damn quick.
Yeah. Well, all the police in the UK all used to ride Norton Commandos in the early 70s. It was that popular bike, and they used to do those guys used to do thousands and thousands of miles riding around the UK, but they were really, really nice bikes. Beautiful sound, beautiful sound.
They're worth money now. The old original ones, like my brother had. My brother wishes he'd kept it. It's worth a lot of money.
Well, we all wish that. I had an MG, and I wish I'd kept mine. I
wish I'd have kept my Dodge.
Yeah. Wish I'd rented the garage. I'd have made a lot of money out of that car. But, so you looking for more money?
I'm looking for more money. I'm willing to do whatever I can. I quit the retail job.
Honestly, you're not dishonestly.
Not dishonest. Yeah, honestly, yes. I quit the retail. I kept the radio job for a while. Quit the retail.
Right.
And started working for a wholesale meat company, delivering meat to restaurants and bars and places like that. I had a van, delivery driver. The company had like 3 or 4 or 5 drivers. And I met another driver, working there. We became good friends. He loved to drink and chase girls, so we had something in common.
Oh, there we go. He was latching onto you because of your female connections down at the mall.
And come to find out, he had previously worked at an auto body shop which closed. And he had the idea to start another one on his own, but he didn't have the money, so he was working to save up money. But he had a partner, an older guy that he'd worked with.
Right.
And the two of them partnered up, started a body shop. I don't even remember the name of it. I convinced them that I was a mechanic because of my muscle car experience.
Okay, hold on a minute. This one. So you went to university, or you graduated doing radio and television.
I didn't graduate. I never did graduate.
You ended up selling furniture.
Yeah.
Then working as an 8-track loader in a radio station.
Yes.
And you have moved now. You want to move into.
Then I was delivering meat.
And then so I can see how all these are joined up. Being a mechanic,
which evolved into working in a body shop. But really, in the back of my mind, I had this idea. I was going to use the body shop as experience to get a regular mechanic's job, right?
Okay.
Because really.
So you had a plan?
Yes, I had a plan. Bill, that was my friend's name.
Yeah.
Bill knew my plan. He knew I wasn't going to stick it out at the body shop.
Right, so he's just helping you.
He's kind of helping me out, right? Do you know why they called it Datsun instead of kneale? I mean, because the cars would actually come with Datsun painted on the back with Datsun emblems.
Right.
But if you look closely, usually there'd be a tiny little badge that would say Datsun by Nissan.
Okay.
It had been Nissan for a long time. But
it'd been Datsun for a long time, or it'd been Nissan for a long time.
Yes, but Nissan executives, in the 60s, when they decided to market in the United States, sell cars, they thought that the Nissan name and emblem,
right,
the sun, the red ball, which was the sun, right? They thought Americans would connect it with World War II.
Oh, so it still had some negative connotation.
Right.
Yeah.
So they cooked up the name Datsun and marketed their cars under the name Datsun. Of course, eventually it became Nissan.
Right.
They dropped Datsun.
Once everybody from the Second World War had forgotten the rising sun.
Yes.
And Pearl Harbor.
Right.
Okay. Right.
So I got hired based on my body shop experience. I got hired at a Datsun dealership.
Okay.
It's called Stone Rose Datsun.
Right.
And they trained me. It didn't take long before they figured out I wasn't really a line mechanic. I could fix a lot of things on cars, but could I be what's called a flat rate commission mechanic? Because that's how you work.
Okay.
You didn't get paid by the hour, you get paid by the flat rate hour.
Right.
Meaning every job that you did paid a certain amount of labor time, which was taken out of what's called a flat rate book.
Okay.
Which has an official listing of every labor time that each job takes. So if the shop was charging customers $100 a labor hour to work on your car, and you brought your car in and say, I need a new water pump.
Yeah.
And flat rate book time would say, well, on that particular car with that engine, these options, blah, blah, blah. Flat rate labor time would be, let's say, 2 hours. So you would get paid 2 hours out of the book.
Yeah.
And at that time, the split between the dealer and the mechanics, the dealers took 55% and mechanics were working at 45%. So you would get 45% of the $100 an hour.
Right.
And at 2 hours, the job paid $200. You got 45% of $200, and that's what you got paid.
Oh, right.
So you could make money if you could beat the book.
Right. Well, we never had anything like that in the UK. We just got a flat rate for working 40 hours, but you always exceeded 40 hours and you never got overtime. So there was never any time clocks or anything like that. It was expected for you to grow your knowledge. I went to King's Head and I started going to college, and I learned how to make sauces and do butchery, do fish, do pastry, do salads, do buffets, and I learned, and I did 2 years at the King's Head, and the company I was working for was a company called Scottish in Newcastle, and the company got bought and I got made redundant, and I spent 6 months without a job because of what happened with the unions.
So they laid you off or
Yeah,
fired you?
they fired me. And then I spent 6 months looking for another job, and I found another job in a hotel called the Russ Hill. And this is going into like late 1978. And I was getting a little bit despondent because I was earning money, but I wasn't saving anything because I wasn't earning enough to save. £5-6 a week was nothing. I was offered this job at the Russ Hill, and it specialised in large banqueting, 1,000, 1,200, but it had a contract with an American airline company called LANANG.
Yeah, I remember.
Really, I think it's quite funny. Most hotels you get a Bible in the room. This hotel took all the Bibles out and replaced the Bible with a box, and in the box it was full of condoms, because they found that these guys, if they had a delayed flight, they wanted massages, they wanted all this extra recreational activity while sitting in this hotel waiting for our phones, and text messaging wasn't around in the UK then.
So the Bible did serve a purpose.
It did serve a purpose, yeah, but the management couldn't work out why all these pages were ripped out of the Bible until somebody explained to them. Yeah, it was about passing notes, passing messages to girls at dinner tables, and it wasn't just the guests; it was also the hotel staff, and that became something of a job for me to move on to, and I started then looking. I wanted to look elsewhere, and I looked in London and I looked in other cities, but the rate wasn't very good for me, Salina. So a guy called Michael Moore from the Chef Centre in Frith Street in London said that he was looking for chefs in Saudi Arabia, and that's when I started interviewing for this job in Saudi Arabia. But again, I had to have a conversation with my parents, because their little boy was looking to fly the nest, and my mum didn't want me to leave home. So
That's a big step, right?
It is, yeah. But I'd worked out that if I'd have stayed in the UK, my parents would turn up on my doorstep checking up on me all the time. So I thought, well, if I moved 10,000 miles away, I wanted to go and work in America. But there were no jobs in America coming up. There was no jobs in Australia coming up at that time. But there were hundreds of jobs coming up in Saudi Arabia. Because they were going through this educational plan for their workforce on experience. So, yeah, so I was coming around to the fact of going to Saudi Arabia.
Actually, working for Nissan was good for me. They sent me to Denver several times for weekly training, so I learned a lot.
Right.
I worked with a guy next to me. His name was Doug Deich. Doug Deich. Doug, real nice guy. Turns out Doug was a Vietnam vet. He'd served in Vietnam with the 101st Airborne Division, which is serious infantry, and he had been wounded.
Okay.
He had fought at Hamburger Hill, Battle of the Ai Drang Valley.
And what was his injury?
He'd been shot in the arm, and it permanently, partially paralyzed his arm. So he'd walk around with his right arm kind of half. He couldn't extend it all the way.
Like half cocked.
Yes.
Okay.
And you would think that would hinder him as a mechanic, but it didn't. The guy was the best mechanic I've ever worked with. He taught me a lot.
Well, that's some praise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've often wondered whether Doug actually got this idea. He bought a 240Z. Remember the 240Z?
Oh, the Datsun 240Z.
Yeah, great car.
Yeah. Very fast.
Probably the only great car that Nissan made at that time was the 240Z. Later the 260, then the 280, then the 300. But he bought a used 240Z, and he dropped a Chevy 350 V8 engine into it.
So if he wasn't fast enough, he wanted this thing to become like a space shuttle.
This was a mini muscle car. But the car was so light, right? Little Z car didn't weigh much of anything. Couldn't keep the rear end on the ground. I mean, he would smoke tires all the time. He blew the rear end, the original Nissan rear end, completely blew it. Spent weeks trying to adapt a Chevy rear end into it. I think he finally managed to do it, if I remember right.
Right.
But then he had problems with the transmission. He'd blow out the Nissan transmission. So he ended up adapting a Chevy transmission.
So he put a big lump engine with lots of torque into the front of the 240Z.
Yes.
But left all the running gear exactly the same.
Yes. Which was a mistake.
Yeah.
Because
maybe it would have been better for him to just get a really big muscle car and put the 240Z body on that.
You know, it's funny. I've watched a YouTube channel. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's actually popular.
Right.
There's thousands. There's got to be thousands of YouTube channels about cars.
Yeah.
Everything from fixing them to buying them to selling them to modifying them, on and on and on.
Ride
There's one channel, Vehcor. That's Vehcor.
Okay, vehicle.
He started out as basically a body guy who would buy cars that were totaled out from an accident, and he would fix them.
Okay.
And he would take you through it. He'd set up a camera, and you'd watch him do all the repairs. Now, recently, a couple months ago, he started something different. He bought a 65 Ford Mustang convertible, and he bought a wrecked 2015 Ford Mustang GT.
All right. Okay.
And he's now adapting the 65 Mustang body to the 2015 Mustang chassis and frame.
And the running gear.
Yes, everything. Only the body is going to be a 65 Mustang. So it's going to look like an old Mustang, but it's going to have new, modern Mustang.
Yeah, it's going to be
engine, transmission, rear end, chassis, frame, everything.
To look at it, it's going to be hot as hell, and when you get in it, it's going to be reliable.
But you have no idea the job that is. I mean, it's unbelievable.
All right.
To adapt the body to a modern chassis. Turns out the new Mustang is wider, bigger than the old 65. And trying to get the body to fit onto a wider frame. I mean, and this guy's doing it all correctly.
Yeah.
Professionally. I mean, he's drilling out each individual rivet and weld carefully.
Right.
He wants this to look exact. No hacks, no shortcuts. He's doing it professionally.
Sounds like a great channel.
It is. It's fun to watch. But he's been in this project for 2 months, 3 months. So every week you get to watch the next step, which can be interesting. But watching him drill out every single rivet on the frame where the body attaches to it, even he speeds it up.
And you fast forward it.
And you're fast forwarding to get past that because you don't want to watch all of it. But he wants to show you exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. Anyways, I got tired of Nissan, and I thought, if I could specialize, because I liked electronics.
Okay, yeah.
Could I specialize in just that instead of doing everything? Brakes, water pumps, clutches, tune-ups, oil changes, which is what's called a general line mechanic. If I could specialize in just electrical, I'd be happy. And I found out that American repair shops specialize. They would divide up the shop into different categories.
Okay, you're right.
And that's what you would do. Whereas Japanese shops, whether it's Nissan or Toyota or Mazda or
Honda,
Mitsubishi or Honda, you were a general line mechanic, meaning you worked on whatever came in the door.
Right, so if it was an engine, you went and did the engine.
Yes.
If it was a gearbox, you did the gearbox.
Occasionally you might have one guy that specialized in engine rebuilds, right? So they would give him all the engine, but everybody else had to do everything.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
Okay.
But American car makers specialize in categories. So just down the street away, a few blocks, was a Chevy dealer. And I applied to Mrs. Chevrolet and got hired in their what was called the 15A department, which is AC, air conditioning, electrical, and trim.
Right, okay.
And that's all you did. That's all I did.
Okay.
And I thought, this is terrific. I can specialize in electrical. And there's a lot of work because it's an American car, which is junk. Chevy, compared to the Japanese car, because Japanese quality improved quickly.
Right, yes.
Toyota didn't come out of nowhere. The reason Toyota is #1 and the best, most reliable car is because the Japanese studied the American production method and improved it. They said, we can do it better.
Right, yeah.
And they did.
Okay.
And they make quality cars. Americans don't. They make crap. But it makes mechanics can make a lot of money because they're always breaking down.
When the Japanese came into the UK market with Datsun and a couple of other brands like Toyota and Honda back in the 70s, they decimated the UK car manufacturers because UK car manufacturing was perceived to be good, but it was going through this time when it was producing crap, and the Japanese car makers just produced better cars that people wanted to buy. It was an expensive commodity. You didn't want to keep buying a car every 2 years or every 3 years because it kept breaking down. I always remember my father bought this brand new Vauxhall VX 490 estate car, and it cost him an absolute fortune, and he had the only brand new car on the street, and he went outside to look at it. I think it was a Wednesday or a Thursday if I remember rightly, and I was walking to work and somebody had actually graffitied down the side of his brand new car, and he was absolutely livid. You know, this car cost him something like about £1,500 brand new, and somebody had just painted down the side of this beige VX 490 some graffiti, and you know, he thought I did it, and I was like, why would I want to paint on the side of your car? I said, you know, it's just taken you all these years, and that was like the linchpin for me to get out of the UK. I was having not a very good time at that time in the late 70s.
Well, before I left Nissan, I bought a Nissan product. I didn't want to. I didn't want to own a Chevy, so I bought a Nissan pickup.
Oh, okay.
And when I started working at Chevrolet, I thought, you know, I still like motorcycles.
Right.
So I turned around and I also bought another bike.
Oh, okay.
A Yamaha. Yamaha 650 Special.
Oh, you jumped Japanese really big.
Yes.
Japanese car pickup.
I'm not going to own a Harley. If you think Chevys are bad, Harleys are worse. No start Harley.
Yeah.
But while I'm working at Chevrolet in the 15A department, which was the warranty designation.
Yeah.
Which is why they called it 15A. The owner of the dealership had two sons that were running the dealership for him.
Okay.
One, Sydney, got this idea that he wanted to start a separate, independent shop there at the dealership because they have these extra buildings out back.
Okay, yeah.
And I gave him the idea, why not start an electrical accessory add-on type business? So, and you've got the customers right here. When a person comes in and buys a car, then you can pitch them to add a stereo, add amplifiers, speakers, CB radios, which were popular at the time, that sort of thing. And you can work a deal out where you buy the stuff, get it wholesale, then you charge people in installation to put it in. And he thought that was a great idea. So he set it up in one of the buildings out back, made me the manager. I hired 2 or 3 guys to do the work. And now I'm finally in electronics. Got away from cars.
Got away. So you become...
I'm on my way.
Your journey.
This is the very beginning of my journey to IT. This is how I got into it and got started. From this job, next week I'm going to